The Raxus 4 colonial transport shuddered as it descended through the upper atmosphere, the viewing panels revealing a landscape that seemed designed by evolution to reject human presence. Crimson canyons stretched for thousands of miles, bordered by dense purple jungles, where predators 3 times the size of Earth's extinct tigers prowled. To most colonists, this was a nightmare. To Dr. Mara Chin, it was home. "Final approach to Colony Prime," announced the pilot. "All personnel secure for landing." Mara tightened her harness and glanced at the reinforced container beside her. A low growl emanated from within. Cinder, her bioengineered companion, expressing his usual distaste for atmospheric entry. The wolf-like creature had been her constant companion for 5 years, a living bridge between her and the deadly fauna of Raxus 4. I know," she whispered, sliding her fingers through the ventilation slats to stroke his silver fur. "Almost there?" The other scientists and security personnel avoided looking at her directly. After 3 years stationed on Raxus, Mara had developed a reputation, the crazy xenobiologist who believed Deathworld predators could be more than research subjects or threats. She believed they could be understood, perhaps even loved. Through the viewport, the colony came into view. 7 massive biodomes interconnected by reinforced tunnels. The only human-habitable zone on a planet that seemed engineered to kill them. Perimeter defense turrets tracked movement in the nearby jungles, ready to incinerate anything larger than a human that approached without authorization. As they disembarked, Captain Elias Juno approached, his security uniform immaculate despite the humid air that immediately fogged everyone else's visors. "Dr. Chin, welcome back," he said with the formal tone he always adopted for official business. "I trust your conference on Earth was productive?" Mara released Cinder from his containment unit, and the meter-tall canid stretched, his silver-blue fur rippling over genetically enhanced muscle. Several nearby technicians flinched. "Very," she replied, ignoring their reactions. "The Interplanetary Xenobiology Institute has granted additional funding for my empathy studies. It seems even Earth's academic elites are curious whether something designed to eat us might actually prefer to befriend us." Elias snorted. "And here I thought they just wanted to know how to kill these things more efficiently." "That's your department, Captain," Mara replied, but without malice. Their professional disagreement had evolved into something almost like friendship over the years. Elias gestured toward the central dome. "Your timing is impeccable. We captured a juvenile Skreelash yesterday. Nasty piece of work. Already killed 2 security drones. Dr. Rovak wants to begin dissection tomorrow." Mara stiffened. "Rovak doesn't touch it until I've had a chance to observe behavioral patterns." "I suspected you'd say that." Elias's mouth twitched with what might have been amusement. "That's why I delayed his authorization." The central dome housed the colony's administrative and research facilities. As they walked, Mara noticed new fortifications, reactive armor plating on vulnerable sections, additional guard posts. The past year had seen increased predator attacks as the terraforming operations pushed deeper into native territory. In the lobby of the research wing, Dr. Rovak waited, his thin face tight with irritation. The corporate overseer had made no secret of his disdain for Mara's work. Our resident predator whisperer returns," he said. "I've prepared the specimen for molecular mapping. Its nervous system shows fascinating adaptations for hunting efficiency." "The Skreelash isn't a specimen yet," Mara countered. "It's a living creature with complex neural pathways we barely understand." Rovak sighed theatrically. "Must we repeat this debate? The corporation funds this colony to develop bioweapons and terraforming solutions, not to establish a petting zoo. My research grant comes from the Institute, not your corporation," Mara reminded him. "And my contract guarantees observation time before any terminal procedures." Elias stepped between them. "The containment unit is ready. Dr. Chin, perhaps you'd like to see your new subject. The Screelash holding facility occupied an isolated section of the research dome. Through reinforced, transparasteel, Mara observed the creature pacing its enclosure, 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with 6 powerful limbs ending in serrated claws. Its exoskeleton gleamed with iridescent blues and violets, while compound eyes tracked every movement beyond its prison. Most terrifying were the twin slashing appendages that gave the species its name, razor-edged and capable of cutting through standard body armor. Magnificent, Mara whispered. Deadly, Elias corrected. This one was hunting at the eastern perimeter. Took out our sensor array before we managed to tranquilize it. Mara approached the barrier, and the Screelash immediately locked its compound eyes on her. Its antennae flared, a threat display. Beside her, Cinder growled softly. Easy, she told both creatures. To Elias, she added. I'll need the observation chamber prepared, and I want all weapons deactivated during initial contact. Rovak, who had followed them, laughed incredulously. You're not seriously considering entering the enclosure? That's exactly what I'm doing, Mara confirmed. First observation is tomorrow at 700. Cinder will accompany me. Your funeral, Rovak muttered. But Mara was already walking away, reviewing mental notes on Screelash behavioral patterns. This was her chance to prove what she'd always believed, that even the most feared predators of Raxus 4 could form connections beyond instinctual aggression. The following morning, Mara stood before the containment chamber's airlock, running final checks on her lightweight exosuit. Unlike standard armor, it offered minimal protection, but maximum mobility. Cinder sat alertly at her feet, his enhanced senses already focused on the predator beyond the door. This is insane, Elias said, checking the tranquilizer rifle he held despite Mara's objections. At least let me station security drones inside. No, nothing that could be perceived as threatening. She activated her neural recorder, a small device at her temple that would capture physiological data from both her and the Screelash. Passive observation only. Corporation protocols require my research, my rules, Mara interrupted. If you want to observe, you can do it from the control room with everyone else. Elias finally relented, though his expression remained troubled. The emergency override is key to my voice command. One word from me, and that chamber floods with enough tranquilizer to drop a megasaur. Mara nodded her thanks, then entered the airlock with Cinder. Her heart pounded as the inner door slid open, revealing the observation chamber, a spacious enclosure designed to mimic the creature's natural environment, with reddish sand and several rocky outcroppings for shelter. The Screelash crouched in the far corner, its body tensed for attack. Mara moved slowly, deliberately, keeping her posture non-threatening. Cinder remained at her side, every muscle coiled with restrained energy. Easy now, she murmured, more for the benefit of her observers than the creature. We're just going to establish presence today. No sudden movements. She lowered herself to a sitting position 10 meters from the predator, placing herself below its eye level, a universal signal of non-aggression among territorial species. For nearly 30 minutes, she simply existed in the space, allowing the Screelash to acclimate to her scent and appearance. The creature's initial aggression gradually shifted to wary curiosity. Its antennae twitched, sampling the air. Slowly, it edged forward, compound eyes fixed on the strange pair of intruders. In the control room, Mara knew Rovak and the other scientists would be watching with a mixture of fear and scientific interest. This moment, peaceful coexistence with one of Raxus 4's apex predators, was already challenging their fundamental assumptions. The Screelash suddenly charged forward several meters, stopping just short of striking distance. A test, Mara recognized. She held her position, though every instinct screamed for her to flee. Beside her, Cinder growled low in his throat, but remained steady. The predator's slashing appendages extended to their full length, then retracted. Another display. Not an actual attack. Communication, albeit primitive. "That's it," Mara whispered. "You're curious, aren't you? Not just hungry or afraid." She reached slowly into a pouch at her belt and removed a small container of protein cubes, synthesized to mimic the Skrelash's natural prey. With deliberate movements, she placed one on the ground before her, then retreated several steps. The standoff continued for another 20 minutes before the creature finally approached the offering, keeping its compound eyes fixed on Mara and Cinder. With lightning speed, it snatched the cube and retreated, consuming it with mandibles that could shear through bone. "Session complete," Mara announced, knowing the control room would hear through her comms. "We're withdrawing." As they backed toward the airlock, the Skrelash watched intently, but made no move to pursue. First contact, successful. In the subsequent days, Mara established a routine. Each morning, she entered the chamber with Cinder, gradually decreasing the distance between them and the predator. By the 5th day, she could approach within 5 meters before the creature displayed warning behaviors. "The neural mapping is fascinating," she explained during an update meeting, displaying holographic representations of the Skrelash's brain activity. "See these patterns? They're consistent with curiosity and social recognition, not just predatory response." Rovak remained skeptical. "Fascinating, certainly, but the corporation expects deliverables. Dr. Chin, biological compounds, genetic sequences for the weapons division, not friendship bracelets for monsters." "Understanding their neurology helps us develop better deterrents," Mara countered. "Non-lethal options that could prevent attacks without damaging the ecosystem." Elias, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "The Colony Council is pressing for results. 3 more attacks on the outer sectors this week. The public wants protection, not scientific insights." Mara felt the familiar frustration rising. Short-sighted. "We're visitors on their world, not conquerors. If we could establish communication protocols—" "They're insects," Rovak interrupted. "Highly evolved. Yes, but still driven by instinct rather than reason. You're anthropomorphizing." Before Mara could respond, an alarm blared throughout the facility. Elias's comm unit crackled with urgent reports. "Perimeter breach in Sector 7, he announced, already moving toward the door. "Multiple predators, all personnel to emergency stations." The attack had been coordinated, unusual for Raxian predators. A pack of raptor-like tunnelers had breached the underground maintenance conduits, while larger creatures assaulted the outer barriers. By the time security forces contained the situation, 3 technicians were dead, and a section of the agricultural dome lay in ruins. The Colony Council convened an emergency session, which Mara attended as chief xenobiologist. The mood was grim. "This was targeted," said Administrator Voss, the civilian leader of the colony. "They're learning our vulnerabilities." "Nonsense," Rovak countered. "It's simply escalating territorial behavior as our terraforming expands." Mara studied the attack footage. "There's something else. The patterns suggest defense, not aggression, as if they're protecting something." "Protecting what?" Elias asked. "I don't know yet, but we need to investigate rather than simply reinforcing our weapon systems." Administrator Voss sighed heavily. "Dr. Chin, your research is valuable, but the colonists are frightened. They need reassurance, not theories about predator motivation." "Give me 2 weeks with the Skrelash," Mara requested. "I can demonstrate meaningful progress in interspecies communication, something that could change our approach to coexistence on this planet." After heated debate, the Council granted her request, but with conditions: accelerated timeline, mandatory security protocols, and regular progress reports to the colony's public information channel. What had been a careful scientific study was now a public spectacle with enormous pressure to succeed. "This is a mistake," Mara told Elias, as they left the council chamber. Rushing the process could destroy the trust I've built. You have 2 weeks to make friends with a creature that would happily disembowel you, he replied. Trust might be the least of your concerns. The next morning, Mara entered the observation chamber with heightened anxiety that she struggled to conceal. The Screelash, now named Subject Alpha in official reports, seemed to sense her tension. It circled warily, more aggressive than in previous sessions. Something's wrong, Mara murmured to Cinder, who stayed protectively close. It's agitated today. She followed standard protocol, placing protein cubes at gradually decreasing distances. But when she attempted to move closer than in previous sessions, the Screelash charged without warning. Cinder reacted instantly, leaping between Mara and the attacking predator. The collision was violent, chitin against enhanced muscle and bone. The Screelash's slashing forelimbs caught Cinder across the flank, opening a deep wound that immediately spilled bright blood onto the sand. No, Mara cried, as Elias's voice shouted through the comms. Initiating emergency protocols. Wait, Mara countered, even as she scrambled backward. The Screelash had retreated after striking Cinder, its behavior suddenly changing. Instead of pressing the attack, it circled uncertainly, antennae extended toward the injured canid. Hold tranquilizers, Mara ordered, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was witnessing. Something's happening. Cinder lay bleeding but conscious, his enhanced biology already working to staunch the wound. The Screelash approached cautiously, then performed a remarkable behavior. It lowered its body in a posture Mara had never seen in this species, almost prostrating itself before the injured Cinder. It's apologizing? She whispered incredulously. More fascinating still, the predator began secreting a clear substance from glands near its mandibles. It daubed this substance on the ground before Cinder, then retreated several paces. Medical team, stand by but do not enter, Mara instructed through her comms. I need to document this interaction. Over the next hour, a remarkable exchange unfolded. The Screelash continued its submissive behavior, while Cinder, weakened but alert, eventually responded by dragging himself forward to investigate the secreted substance. The moment was electric with significance. 2 predator species, communicating through a language of posture and chemistry. When Mara finally withdrew with the injured Cinder, her mind buzzed with implications. Analysis confirmed what she had suspected. The secretion contained powerful antibacterial compounds and coagulants, a healing offering. It recognized its error, she explained to a skeptical medical team as they treated Cinder. More importantly, it attempted to make amends. That suggests not only empathy, but a moral framework we never suspected in arthropod neurology. News of the incident spread quickly through the colony. Though with distortions that frustrated Mara, public broadcasts emphasized the attack rather than the reconciliation that followed. Colonists demanded stronger security measures. Corporate officials questioned the value of continued live interaction studies. Rovak was particularly vocal. This proves my point. These creatures are unpredictable and lethal. We should focus on biological extraction, not communication. But Mara had an unexpected ally in Elias, who had witnessed the entire exchange. I've never seen anything like it, he admitted privately, as they visited Cinder in the veterinary unit. That wasn't random behavior. It was deliberate. Mara stroked Cinder's recovering flank. This changes everything, Elias. If they can recognize harm and attempt to mitigate it, we're not dealing with mindless killers. We're dealing with a sentient species with its own ethical system. The bioengineered canid whined softly, pressing against her hand. His recovery was proceeding rapidly, enhanced healing genes already knitting the damaged tissue. The Council won't care, Elias warned. They want guarantees of safety, not philosophical debates about alien ethics. Then we give them both, Mara decided. I'm going to demonstrate that we can establish mutual trust, something more valuable than any weapon. Despite Rovak's objections, Mara resumed her sessions with the Skrilash 3 days later. Something fundamental had changed in their dynamic. The creature recognized her immediately, performing the same submissive posture it had shown after injuring Cinder. Over the next week, Mara made remarkable progress. She established a rudimentary communication system based on simple movements and chemical markers. The Skrilash learned to recognize patterns that indicated food, danger, or approval. More remarkably, it began to initiate interactions, presenting Mara with objects from its enclosure in what appeared to be offerings. "It's imprinted on you," Elias observed during one session. "Like some kind of alien pet." Mara shook her head. "Not a pet, a research partner. It's cooperating because it recognizes mutual benefit, not because it's been domesticated." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a standard session, the Skrilash suddenly became agitated, rushing to the farthest corner of the enclosure. It began digging frantically in the substrate, revealing something it had carefully buried. "What is it doing?" Elias asked through the comms. Mara approached cautiously, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. The Skrilash stepped aside, revealing a clutch of iridescent orbs nestled in the sand. Eggs. "Incredible," Mara breathed. "It's not just a juvenile. It's a nesting female." The discovery explained everything: the protective behavior, the initial aggression followed by careful assessment. The Skrilash hadn't been captured during a random hunt. It had been defending a nest site that human sensors had inadvertently threatened. "We need to adjust protocols immediately," Mara announced. "Temperature controls, humidity levels, everything to support egg development." "You can't be serious." Rovak's voice crackled through the comms. "Those eggs represent potential threats, not opportunities." "They represent life," Mara countered, "and our best chance to understand the complete life cycle of the species." The debate escalated to Administrator Voss, who ultimately sided with Mara, with conditions. The eggs would remain under observation, but security measures would be enhanced. More critically, Rovak was granted permission to extract genetic material from one egg for analysis, provided the procedure didn't harm the embryo. Mara disliked the compromise, but recognized it as necessary politics. She focused instead on creating optimal conditions for the clutch and continuing her communication experiments with the mother Skrilash, whom she now privately called Matria. The nest discovery transformed Mara's research. With maternal instincts activated, Matria displayed increasingly complex social behaviors. She accepted Mara's presence near the eggs, even allowing careful examination. When Cinder finally returned to the observation sessions, Matria performed elaborate greeting rituals that suggested recognition and even something like respect. "She's capable of distinguishing individuals and remembering past interactions," Mara explained during a public information broadcast. "These aren't just instinctual responses. They're learned behaviors adapted to new social dynamics." Public opinion began to shift. Colonists who had demanded extermination now watched fascinated as daily updates showed the fearsome predator engaging in what could only be described as cooperative research. Children sent messages asking about the eggs and when they would hatch. For the first time, Raxian wildlife was being viewed with curiosity rather than terror. But tensions remained beneath the surface. Rovak's genetic analysis revealed compounds with extraordinary potential for pharmaceutical development: pain suppressants, nerve regeneration factors, and immune modulators, unlike anything in Earth's pharmacopoeia. "The corporation estimates billions in potential revenue," he informed a closed-door meeting of colony leadership. "We need additional samples, preferably from multiple eggs to ensure genetic diversity." "The agreement was for minimal intrusion," Mara objected. "We're just beginning to establish trust." "Trust doesn't pay for colony expansion," Rovak countered. or for the families of those killed in predator attacks. The meeting ended without resolution, but Mara sensed a shift in priorities. Corporate interests were overwhelming scientific concerns, as they often did on frontier worlds. She doubled her efforts with Matria, hoping to demonstrate value beyond exploitation. She didn't expect betrayal to come so swiftly. Mara entered the observation chamber for a routine morning session to find Matria in a state of extreme agitation. The Skrilash circled the nest site, slashing appendages fully extended in threat display. When Mara approached, the creature charged, forcing her to retreat to the airlock. "Something's wrong," she reported urgently. "Run a chamber diagnostic." The answer came from Elias, his voice tight with controlled anger. "One egg is missing, removed during the night shift." "What? By whose authority?" "Corporate override. Rovak transferred it to the genetics lab." Mara felt sick with rage and disappointment. "Take me there. Now." The genetics lab was in lockdown when they arrived, but Elias's security credentials gained them entry. Inside, Rovak supervised a team of technicians as they carefully sectioned the iridescent egg, extracting tissue samples from the developing embryo. "This is unauthorized experimentation," Mara accused, storming into the lab. "You've violated research protocols and endangered the trust relationship I've established." Rovak barely glanced up. "I have full corporate authorization. The potential applications are too valuable to ignore based on your sentimental attachments. Dr. Chin, that egg isn't yours to dissect. Return it to the nest immediately." "I'm afraid that's impossible now," Rovak replied, gesturing to the open shell. "But don't worry, we have plenty more to work with." Something in Mara snapped. She lunged forward, grabbing for the containment unit holding the embryo. Security personnel moved to intercept her, but Elias intervened, creating momentary confusion. In the chaos, a technician's elbow struck a control panel. Emergency alarms blared as containment protocols activated, including in the observation chamber, housing Matria and the remaining eggs. "No!" Mara shouted, watching in horror as monitoring screens showed automated systems flooding the chamber with high-level tranquilizers. Matria fought desperately against the effects, clawing at the nest as her massive body began to falter. Worse, the chemical cocktail designed for adult specimens was having an unexpected effect on the eggs. Their shells, normally iridescent blue, darkened and began to pulse with internal movement. "The eggs are hatching prematurely," Mara realized. "The tranquilizer is triggering an emergency response." Even Rovak looked alarmed. "That's not possible. Incubation should take weeks, not—" The first shell split with explosive force, revealing a Skrilash juvenile no larger than cinder. Unlike its mother, the hatchling's exoskeleton was soft and pale, its movements frantic and uncoordinated. Within moments, 5 more eggs hatched in rapid succession. The juvenile Skrilashes immediately scattered, their instincts driving them to seek dark spaces and protection. Before anyone could react, they had located a maintenance shaft and disappeared into the colony's ventilation system. "Containment breach!" shouted a security officer. "Predator infiltration of main colony systems!" "They're not predators yet," Mara countered desperately. "They're newborns, disoriented and frightened." But the colony's emergency protocols were already activating. Blast doors sealed, separating sectors as heavily armed security teams deployed to hunt down the escaped juveniles. In the observation chamber, Matria had collapsed near the empty nest, her massive body succumbing to the tranquilizers. Her compound eyes, however, remained fixed on the ventilation shaft where her offspring had disappeared. "She knows," Mara said to Elias as they watched the monitor. "She understands they're in danger." Elias's expression was grim. "Everyone's in danger now. If those juveniles reach populated areas, they won't attack unless threatened," Mara insisted. "But if security starts shooting, their defensive instincts will trigger. We need to find them before anyone gets hurt." The colony descended into controlled chaos. Public broadcasts instructed civilians to shelter in place, while security teams conducted systematic sweeps. Rovak and corporate officials issued statements, emphasizing the danger and minimizing their role in the incident. Mara formulated a desperate plan. "I need access to Maitreya," she told Elias. "And Cinder." "The Skrilash is under maximum security lockdown," he objected. "After what just happened." "She's our only hope of finding the juveniles peacefully," Mara insisted. "They'll respond to her pheromones, her call patterns. Without her, this becomes a bloodbath, theirs or ours." After tense negotiation, Elias arranged emergency access to the observation chamber. Maitreya was beginning to recover from the tranquilizers, her massive body trembling with returning strength and rage. Mara entered alone, knowing the risk. The Skrilash's compound eyes locked onto her immediately, slashing forelimbs extending to combat position. "I know," Mara said softly, approaching with palms extended. "I understand. They took your children." She activated her neural recorder, transmitting Maitreya's pheromone signature to colony sensors. If the juveniles were searching for their mother, this might help track them without violence. To her surprise, Maitreya did not attack. The creature circled Mara warily, antennae extended to sample her scent. There was recognition there, and something deeper. A desperate, primal understanding between two intelligent beings. "We can find them together," Mara continued, gesturing toward the ventilation shaft. "But you need to trust me." What followed was either the bravest or most foolish action in colonial history. With Elias's reluctant assistance, Mara established a controlled pathway from the observation chamber to the colony's maintenance tunnels, allowing Maitreya limited but critical freedom. With Cinder tracking by scent and Maitreya following pheromone trails only she could detect, they began a tense hunt through the colony's undercity, the maze of maintenance corridors, recycling plants, and storage facilities beneath the main habitation domes. "First juvenile located in Sector 3, hydroponics filtration," reported a security officer, tracking their progress. "Security team en route." "No engagement," Mara countered through her comms. "We're approaching from the eastern junction. All personnel stand down." They found the first hatchling huddled in a drainage channel, its pale exoskeleton already darkening as it adapted to its environment. Maitreya approached with a series of clicking sounds Mara had never heard before. Communication beyond human understanding. The juvenile responded immediately, scrambling toward its mother with movements that mixed fear and recognition. Rather than attacking or fleeing from the humans, it pressed itself against Maitreya's armored leg, seeking protection. "That's one," Mara told Elias. 5 more to go." The pattern repeated across the undercity, each juvenile located through Maitreya's sensory capabilities, each responding to her presence without aggression toward the humans who followed cautiously behind. The colony's security teams maintained distance but remained ready to intervene if necessary. The final juvenile proved most challenging, having wandered into the colony's primary power distribution center. By the time Mara's team located it, a corporate security squad had the creature cornered, weapons trained on its trembling form. "Stand down," Mara ordered, stepping between the weapons and the juvenile Skrilash. "We have a peaceful containment protocol in progress." The squad leader, one of Rovak's personal security team, didn't lower his weapon. "Corporate override. These specimens are classified as critical bioresearch assets, to be contained using all necessary force." Behind Mara, Maitreya sensed the threat to her offspring. Her massive body tensed, slashing forelimbs extending to their full, lethal length. "If you fire," Mara said quietly, "you trigger a massacre. Is that what you want transmitted to every colonist watching this feed?" For Elias had made a critical decision. He was broadcasting the entire operation live to the colony's information channels. Every colonist could see the careful, intelligent way Maitreya gathered her young, and the restraint she showed despite clear provocation. The security team hesitated, aware of the public scrutiny. In that moment of uncertainty, Administrator Voss's voice came through all comm channels. Security forces stand down. Dr. Chin has operational authority for predator containment. I repeat, stand down. The confrontation diffused slowly, tension bleeding away as weapons lowered. Maitreya gathered her final offspring, the family unit now complete, and huddled together in a defensive formation that nevertheless made no aggressive moves toward the humans surrounding them. It was a turning point, not just for Mara's research, but for the colony's relationship with Raxus Thurfu's indigenous life. In the aftermath, public opinion shifted dramatically. Footage of Maitreya protecting, rather than attacking, of juvenile Skrilashes responding to gentle guidance rather than violence, transformed the narrative. What had been monsters became mothers. What had been threats became potential allies. Rovak faced professional consequences for his unauthorized actions, removed from his position and recalled to corporate headquarters. Before departing, he offered Mara a rare moment of honesty. I still believe my approach was correct, he told her. But I underestimated what you would discover. There are pharmaceutical applications in their biochemistry that could save millions of lives without requiring termination. Perhaps there is room for both our methods. The Colony Council, responding to public pressure and scientific evidence, approved Mara's proposal for an expanded research facility, one designed not for containment and exploitation, but for cooperative study and mutual benefit. 3 months later, the Sanctum of Symbiosis opened its transparent doors to the public. Within its carefully designed environments, Maitreya and her now adolescent offspring occupied territories that overlapped with human research areas. Colonial children pressed their faces against observation panels, watching in wonder as creatures they had been taught to fear moved with surprising grace through shared spaces. Most remarkable were the changes in the Skrilash themselves. The juveniles, raised in proximity to humans, displayed none of the territorial aggression of their wild counterparts. Their slashing appendages remained sheathed during interactions with researchers. They recognized individual humans, responding differently to Mara than to other scientists. They're not domesticated, Mara explained during educational tours. They've simply adapted to a new social dynamic, one where cooperation yields better results than conflict. And adaptation went both ways. Colonial architects incorporated Skrilash building techniques into new biodome designs, creating stronger, more efficient structures. Medical researchers developed treatments based on the predator's remarkable immune systems. Terraforming teams consulted with xenobiologists before altering landscapes, preserving crucial habitats while still expanding human presence. Elias, who had become a steadfast ally through crisis, found himself reassigned from predator defense to what colony records officially termed interspecies security coordination. In practice, this meant working alongside Mara to establish protocols for peaceful interaction between colonists and Raxian wildlife. Never thought I'd be teaching security teams how to pet monsters, he remarked during a training session where junior officers learned to approach juvenile Skrilashes without triggering defensive reactions. Not monsters, Mara corrected, watching as a young officer cautiously stroked the now smooth carapace of one adolescent. Just different types of intelligence finding common ground. The juvenile Skrilash vibrated its carapace plates in what they had come to recognize as contentment, a sound remarkably similar to a cat's purr, though produced through entirely different biological mechanisms. Most evenings, Mara spent time in the observation area with Cinder and Maitreya. The bioengineered canid had developed his own communication patterns with the Skrilash, a relationship that defied conventional understanding of predator psychology. They would circle each other in complex patterns, exchanging scent markers and vocalizations that Mara was still working to decode. On one such evening, as Raxus Thurfu's crimson sun set beyond the biodome, casting everything in amber light, Mara recorded her final observations for the day. Subject continues to display advanced problem-solving and social cognition, she dictated, as Maitreya manipulated a puzzle box Mara had designed to test dexterity and planning. Parental behavior extends beyond offspring to include protective responses toward human juveniles who visit regularly. She paused, watching as Maitreya successfully opened the box and carefully extracted the protein reward inside. The massive predator turned, mandibles working in what almost resembled satisfaction, and approached where Mara sat cross-legged on the observation platform. In a gesture that still stunned visiting officials, Maitreya extended one massive forelimb, the same appendage that could slice through armor plating, and gently, with control that defied evolutionary expectation, placed a portion of the protein cube before Mara. Sharing, gift-giving, concepts once thought unique to mammals and certain avian species, now demonstrated by an arthropod predator from a world humans had labeled as hostile to all life but its own. "Perhaps that's what we've been missing," Mara said softly, accepting the offering with appropriate ceremony. "The universe isn't divided into safe worlds and death worlds, just places where we haven't yet learned the right language to say hello." Cinder pressed against her side, his silver-blue fur rippling as Maitreya's antennae gently brushed across it, sensory organs mapping familiar territory with something approaching affection. Mara stroked them both, feeling the contrast between warm fur and cool exoskeleton beneath her fingertips. In her scientific reports, she maintained professional distance, describing neurological pathways and evolutionary adaptations. But in private moments like this, she acknowledged the deeper truth. Humans had come to Raxus 4 seeking resources, security, new frontiers to conquer. What they found, instead, was a reminder of something primal, the desire for connection, even with the most alien of beings. Throughout human history, people had domesticated predators, transforming wolves into companions and jungle cats into pampered pets. The official explanation was always practical: security, hunting assistance, pest control. But Mara knew the simpler truth that her research was finally proving on an interplanetary scale. Sometimes, the most sophisticated beings in the universe just wanted something soft to pet. As if to emphasize this point, one of Maitreya's adolescent offspring scuttled into the observation area, its movements now fluid and controlled. It approached a group of colonial children on a supervised visit, lowering its body in the greeting posture Mara had helped establish. The children, once taught to fear these creatures, now laughed in delight as they carefully stroked its carapace, marveling at the iridescent colors that shifted beneath their fingertips. "Future xenobiologists," Elias observed, joining Mara on the platform. "Your legacy." "Our legacy," she corrected. "I couldn't have done this without your support." "You could have," he disagreed, "but more people would have been slashed to ribbons in the process." Mara laughed, recognizing the truth in his humor. "A fair point. But look at them now." Across the sanctum, humans and Raxian predators moved in shared spaces, each species adapting to the other's presence. The juveniles, now approaching sub-adult size, retained their capacity for trust and cooperation, proving that early socialization could transform even evolutionary impulses. "The real test comes next month," Elias reminded her, "when we begin controlled introduction of wild-caught adults." Mara nodded, excitement mingling with scientific caution. Maitreya will be key to that transition. Her pheromone signatures signal safety to newcomers. As night fell over the colony, internal lighting softened to accommodate both human and Skrilash circadian rhythms. Maitreya settled near the platform, her massive body curved protectively around her offspring. Cinder, displaying the remarkable adaptability of his engineered genome, curled comfortably against the predator's flank, natural enemies transformed into unlikely family. In her quarters later that night, Mara reviewed the day's data, noting behavioral patterns and neurological responses for her formal reports. But she also kept a personal journal, documenting the emotional journey that science alone couldn't capture. Today, I watched children who once had nightmares about monsters giggle as those same monsters played gentle games with them, she wrote. I saw security officers who had been trained to shoot on sight, now carefully checking whether feeding stations were properly stocked. Evolution designed the Skrelash to kill, and humans to fear. But intelligence, true sentience, means the ability to override design when something better presents itself. She closed her journal and gazed out at the biodomes gleaming under Raxus 4's triple moons. Beyond their protective barriers, wild predators still hunted in the crimson canyons and purple jungles. Many would remain wild, following the evolutionary imperatives that had shaped them for millennia. But here, in this small corner of a hostile world, a different path was being forged, one where empathy overcame fear, and creatures designed by different stars to destroy each other instead found ways to coexist. It wasn't domestication, Mara reflected. It was something more profound. Mutual recognition between sentient beings that together they could create something neither could achieve alone. As she drifted toward sleep, Mara heard the distant, rhythmic humming of Skrelash communications, a sound once associated with terror, now as comforting as a lullaby. Somewhere in the sanctum, Matria was teaching her offspring, and perhaps they were teaching the humans something in return. The first Raxian night creatures to be welcomed into the colony had been brought as research subjects. They remained as family.